Welcome back to Bilingualism and the Brain. This is part 2. In the beginning of this presentation, we outlined some basic benefits of bilingualism, including advantages in executive function, academic achievement, creativity, and problem solving. We've completed 2 exercises designed to help you see how much proficiency in Spanish you already have that you might not be aware of. And we discussed specifically what executive function looks like and how bilingualism can help streamline and increase function. When we broke off part 1, we had started talking about academic achievement and Sousa's statement that intelligence is largely tied to the amount of gray matter present in the frontal lobe. The more gray matter in the frontal lobe, the more intelligent a person generally is. And we also shared how that related to research that's telling us that bilingual people have more gray matter, denser gray matter in the parietal lobe, which, while being in a different part of the brain, still suggests a relation with intelligence. I'd like to share with you now, with part 2, some research that is cited by the American Council of the Teaching of Foreign Languages, or as we call it, ACTFL. And they've done a really great job of helping language teachers have the resources to, in a sense, give apologetics for their subject. And they've done a really great job of assembling these research studies and presenting kind of abstracts that language teachers can then use with the parents of the students in their classroom, their students, their administrators, to help people really see the benefits of second language proficiency. And some of their findings that they've been able to share are that language learning correlates with higher academic achievement on standardized test measures. Those would be your college entrance exams, even state standardized testing measures. And what that kind of suggests is that perhaps that gray matter increase is helping students to have more brain muscle, as it were, to do well. It also benefits the development of students' reading abilities, and it helps students to transfer skills from one language to another. I have a student this year, and I've had her since she was in Spanish 1 as a freshman. She's now in Spanish 4 as a senior. And when this student entered my class, it was challenging for her. She's dyslexic and dysgraphic. So language is difficult for her. And we were having an interesting conversation a couple weeks ago, just reflecting on her language learning journey as I'm preparing this research for this project. And she shared with me that her grammatical studies in Spanish have really helped her understand the grammar in English. And I thought that was really interesting. So a lot of times we try to downplay the role of grammar in teaching language, and it was interesting to hear how this student who has difficulties with grammar is saying how the study of it in another language has helped her to understand her own language better. And she's really grown so much from the beginning of Spanish 1 to this year. One of her accommodations is that she doesn't always have to get spelling right. Well, that simply doesn't work in second language. So she's learned to spell things that she can't necessarily spell in English. And it's been a real source of pride for her that she's been able to develop this much ability in a second language. Another student in my Spanish 4 class, who's also, I've had him since Spanish 2. He's in the top 3 of our senior class this year. Brilliant, brilliant kid. And he was telling me that the study of Spanish has helped him to improve his writing ability, almost going to the point of saying that almost more than his AP classes have. Because of the different grammatical structures, the different sentence forms that we have studied in Spanish, he said that he's been able to better vary his writing style so that he can add a little more variety to his writing. It's not the same sentence over and over and over again. It's enabled him to use different techniques. It increases linguistic awareness, language learning. And once again, when you're studying another language, it can't help but make you more aware of your own and just make you think about how language functions. And it also correlates with higher academic performance at the college level. I would say that could probably be related to, one, the benefits in executive function. Anytime the brain is able to get further on less energy, that's going to create a boost, and being able to prioritize things, organize things, ordered thinking is always going to help, combined with the gray matter increase. I would definitely agree that would create that higher performance. So the next bilingual effect that we're going to be discussing is creativity and problem solving. I'm going to be treating these two together because I feel that they're very interrelated. I love this quote from Einstein: "Creativity is intelligence having fun." And sometimes I feel that creativity doesn't necessarily get its due within our academic settings. We have our standardized tests, we have our state standards or objectives that we have to meet, and sometimes we lose sight of creativity simply because creativity is not something that's being assessed. And it's very difficult to assess creativity since it looks different for each individual. But I love the concept of creativity being intelligence having fun, because ultimately our students need to have fun in what they're learning. Lycan did a study, and some of his results stated that bilingualism seems to be capable of influencing the flexibility and originality of thinking, both generally and individually. And when we talk about this flexibility, we're talking about it more in lines of what Cipra states as the ability to see things from two or more perspectives and to understand how people think. The sheer virtue of having two languages coexisting in your mind is going to make you develop a little more fluidity, a little more flexibility in your thinking. I would compare it to an athlete who cross-trains. A lot of our football players do track and field during the off season to help them with their speed and agility, which then translates into a better performance on the football field. Language learning is similar cross-training for the brain. When you're training in one language, it helps to improve the other language, and the brain gets stronger, more flexible, more agile, and allows you to think more creatively. In an article called My Two Minds, Delange shares her experience as growing up bilingual and discusses how growing up bilingual shaped different aspects of her personality. One of the things that she says in her article is that bilinguals are better at putting themselves in other people's shoes to understand their side of a situation. They can more easily block out what they already know and focus on the other viewpoint. This would suggest that bilingualism would also help in terms of empathy. This increased creativity allows them to have better problem-solving skills. And I love this quote here from Maya Angelou: "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have." I love this idea of creativity as a renewable resource. And I feel like that's a concept that our students could really hold on to. Lycan's study was conducted among monolingual and bilingual primary students. He followed them for a couple of years and measured their ability to solve hypothetical problems. The bilingual students demonstrated more eclectic means of solving these hypothetical problems compared to their monolingual peers. Simply put, the bilingual students were better able to think outside the box, maybe consider an angle that their monolingual peers had not. Another really interesting aspect of this research that's emerging is that there's a degree of personality fluidity that's occurring with bilinguals. And that could directly relate to the creativity and problem solving. Veldkamp, Recio, Jacobs, and Conrad have found that bilingualism provides the individual with a new range of perceiving and displaying his or her own personality, an enrichment of personal space apparently most welcome by second language learners. Now, this quote that I have here from Charlemagne predates this research study by centuries and states, to have another language is to possess a second soul. So he was on to something long before this research came out. Now, as I was reading the articles having to deal with personality and second language, I stopped and I spoke to my mom. I asked her, is my personality different when I'm speaking in Spanish versus when I'm speaking in English? And what she said was pretty surprising. Not according to the research, it was perfectly expected according to the research, but for me personally, it was surprising. As a lot of you know, I'm an introvert. It might not always be obvious, but I am. And she said that when I'm speaking in Spanish, I become more reserved. She says that she can tell that I'm really actively thinking about what I want to say as opposed to just saying it like I would in English. She said that with family, I'm a little freer with what I'm wanting to say or how I'm wanting to express myself or even how much I'm participating in the conversation. But if I'm not with my family, if I'm with people that I don't know, I become more reserved, more closed off, not necessarily meaning hostile, but just much less willing to give of myself to a conversation. Okay, time for another proficiency check. So I hope you still have that scratch paper with you. It's time for us to see if we can match some translations. So the first word we want to match is pollo. Pollo. So I'll give you a second to write down what you think it matches with. Okay, pollo means chicken. Okay, arroz. Arroz. You should have matched arroz with rice. Okay, maíz. Maíz. This one's kind of a cognate. And it goes with corn. So think maíz, maize. See the interrelation there? Okay, rellenos. Rellenos. That is going to match with stuffed. Okay, camarones. Camarones. That is going to match with shrimp. Okay, sopa. Sopa. That's going to go with soup. It's always fun when a student guesses soap for that one. It's like, no, you would not want to eat soap. Estofado. Estofado. Well, we really only have one option left, and that's stew. Okay, in part 3 of this presentation, we're going to be discussing implications from teaching and how you, as a classroom teacher, can encourage bilingualism in your students.